Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. Now, Amonkhet came out a little over a week ago at this point, and it had a big effect. We already saw the first weekend of major tournaments and how the standard meta is changing. I did a video on Monday where I talked about that in a little more detail. We looked at some of the cards that were being impacted financially due to what we saw over the weekend. Today, being a more regular version of the Market Watch, we're going to continue to look at Standard and see how those changes evolve this week, but we'll also peek in and see what's happening with Modern and Legacy. Now, quickly before we get started, if you check out the description below, you'll find a couple ways to help support the channel, one of which is our Amazon affiliate store. If you make any purchases through any links to any sellers on Amazon through that storefront, a small percentage will come back to help support the channel. It really goes a long way. And the other way to help us out is Patreon. We're actually very close to our next Patreon goal, so if you get a chance, check that out. All right, having said that, let's get into the cards, and we're going to start off, as we always do with Standard, looking at the cards that lost value this week. No real surprises here. I mean, these are cards, some of them were cards that were maybe a little overpriced coming out of the pre-release season and are still finding their price point. Others are cards that are seeing a little bit less play now. Coming in at number 5 is Saheeli Rai, down $1.10 to $7.99. Of course, this card is going to be hurt financially by the banning of Felidar Guardian in Standard. Coming in number 4 is Gideon of the Trials, down $1.41 to $23.46. Now, Gideon did see a little bit of play in the Star City Games Open last weekend in Atlanta. Not a whole lot, but there were a few copies floating around here and there. This is still a card to watch in the future, but it did come out of the pre-release season with a pretty high price point. So I expect this to continue to stabilize down, barring any big performance that could potentially come out of the Pro Tour in another week. Coming in number 3 is Harsh Mentor, down $1.70 to $4.88. Now, here's another card that really kind of feels like it wants to be a Modern, like Naya Burn or something like that. And that's not going to happen overnight. Modern players are going to be a little more methodical, take a little more time to brew and experiment with cards like this before they start throwing them in decks in major tournaments. So I don't expect this to take off within the next, I don't know, week or so, but this is still one to watch. If it doesn't find a foothold, well, of course, it will fall down to the bulk rare status. But if it can make a splash, even a small one in Modern, this will definitely be a card to watch in the future. Coming in at number 2 is As Foretold, down $2.02 to $9.57. There's a lot of excitement initially when this card was previewed due to the fact that it combos really well with Suspend cards, and that opens up a lot of possibilities for Modern as well as Commander. I think right now Commander players are the ones gravitating to this card a little more than anybody else, but again, it had a big price point coming out of the pre-release, so that's going to continue to go down a little bit. And coming in at number 1 is Glorybringer, down $2.78 to $8.50. Now, Glorybringer was a card that did really well last weekend. I mean, we saw this in a lot of decks. It looked very strong. The biggest thing going against it is it's a rare in a new set where a lot of packs are being opened. So you're going to expect the price point to start creeping down a little bit. However, I feel like this is going to have a good showing next week at the Pro Tour, and if that's the case, you can expect a artificial bump for at least a couple weeks coming out of this card. So this one's going to be a little bit of a roller coaster ride, definitely one to watch, but ultimately, it is a rare. A lot of packs are going to be open. At the end of the day, that's going to be a big strike against it for long-term value. All right, let's look at the cards that gain value this week. Now, in the top 8 of the Star City Games Open, we had 5 copies of Mardu Vehicles. Now, that is the proven deck. Of course, Felidar Guardian was banned. A lot of folks didn't have a whole bunch of time to come up with anything new. So I don't know if that should be too surprising coming out of week 1. But when you go a little bit further down the list and you start looking at top 16, top 32, there was a lot of diversity. And you'll notice in the top 5 cards this week that a lot of that diversity has shown through. There's a lot of players interested in some of these decks. Coming in number 5, Pull from Tomorrow, up $1.91 to $4.67. This was a fantastic control card. I mean, a very, very efficient draw spell we saw this past weekend. Coming in number 4 is Relentless Dead, up $2.13 to $15.58. Now, we saw a couple variants of the Zombie Tribal deck do well last weekend. One was the Orzhov version, one was Mono Black. Both decks had 4 of these in the deck list. Coming in number 3 is Fatal Push, up $2.57 to $9. This card still surprises me just how fast it is moving up. It is an uncommon technically, but it does appear that it's harder to get in the set than most uncommons. Probably a little bit closer to a rare than an uncommon or somewhere in between. Because of that, the card continues to do well, especially considering the strength of the card in these constructed formats. Now, even a rare card from Aether Revolt, I'd be impressed if it was at $9. This one, technically being uncommon, it just really goes to show you how powerful this card is. Fantastic card for Modern, fantastic card for Standard. Number 2 is Crypt Breaker, up 362 to 639. Another card that fits into those zombie tribal decks. And finally, coming in at number 1, Torrential Gearhulk, up 659 to 2255. This was maybe the bounce back card of last weekend. Control decks were running this. And even though control decks didn't necessarily have a big showing in the top 8, they did have a large showing when you start getting into the top 16, top 32. There are some really good ones out there that could potentially continue to build and tweak and get better, and easily could break into some top 8s over the course of the next few weeks. Torrential Gearhulk was a main part of many of those builds. Alright, let's move on to Modern. We're going to start off with the cards that lost value this week. For the most part, these are cards that have recently spiked and are just stabilizing down a little. Coming in number 5, Krark Clan Ironworks, down 225 to 1029. Coming in number 4 is Doubling Season from the first Modern Masters, down $278 to $60. We've been seeing the Ravnica conversion go down a little bit the last few weeks. This one's just kind of catching up with it. Coming in at number 3, Dark Confidant, down $286 to $44.99. This is the Modern Masters 2015 version. This card is seeing a lot of Modern play. It had some pretty big spikes about a month ago. And over the last couple weeks, the original Modern Masters version has been trending down. This one, again, just catching up with it a little bit. Coming in number 2 is Mishra's Bauble, down $313 to $39.99. Now, this is a card that's lost a lot of value over the last month or so, but it did get up to the $60 to $70 range. And this card, originally being an uncommon, it's never been reprinted. However, there's a good chance at some point this will see a reprint in either a supplemental product that could be a product of wide distribution, or it could simply show up in something like Iconic Masters as an uncommon or a common. Because of this uncertainty, this card is going to be soft, and I think is going to continue to be soft. It's a great card. It's still seeing a lot of play. A lot of players are going to want to pick these up for decks, which will keep the card from completely losing its value. But a lot of people are going to be scared to touch this one too. Coming in at number 1, Protean Hulk, down $452 to $17.49. Now, about a week ago, this was unbanned for Commander, for Paper Commander, and this saw a huge spike, as we talked about it last week in the Market Watch. Starting to stabilize now. A spike like that obviously can't hold. This card is not going to go back down to where it was prior to the spike, but it is going to continue to go down a little bit. The big question now is going to be, is this card too good for Commander? I mean, it was originally banned because it could do some degenerate stuff, especially comboing with cards like Flash. However, we'll have to wait and see if the environment can now control this card, or if it's going to kind of run wild again and get banned a few weeks down the road. Alright, let's move into the cards that have gained value this week. If you're a control player, this is going to be a big week for you. A lot of good control cards on the list. Coming in number 5 is Unified Will, up $369 to $448. Now, this is a card that early on in Modern's history, a lot of folks didn't pay much attention to, but recently it's been creeping into a lot of builds, especially builds that have a lot of creatures like fairies. As you can imagine, it's actually very good there. I've been seeing this card played, it feels like even more than Remand nowadays. And this is an uncommon from Rise of the Eldrazi, but this actually could be the next Remand before Remand got its reprints and stuff like that. This is one to watch. If you're interested in potentially playing some creature-centric blue decks in the future of Modern, you may want to go ahead and pick up a playset of these now. If you can find them for under $5, I think it's a real good deal. Coming in at number 4, Ancestral Vision, up $375 to $62.73. Well, this card really has become the real deal. I mean, it got unbanned not too long ago. It's been steadily creeping up ever since then. And now it's right in the conversation where like Damnation used to be, or Crucible of Worlds is now, or even Chalice of the Void. It's a amazing card. It's a classic card that is going to continue to go up in value, even if it is slowly at this point, because it is reaching kind of that top of the curve that most people are willing to pay for Modern cards. But still, this is a phenomenal card. It's going to continue to see a lot of play. Coming in at number 3 is Cryptic Command, up $379 to $34.26, another classic control card for Modern. Number 2, Pact of Negation from the first Modern Masters, up 462 to 4320. Now, I don't really think of this one as a classic control card, although it can fit into some of those decks. I think of this as more of an ad nauseum card, another deck that's doing really well right now in the meta. And finally, coming in at number 1, Seishiro the Anointed, up $4.91 to $9. Now, obviously, Amonkhet does have some snake creature types going on there, and this is a card that's your Snake Lord. That is also legendary, so you can kind of start to fill in the blanks here. This is definitely a commander card, a big commander card right now. Alright, let's move on to Legacy, and let's look at the cards that lost value this week. And a lot of the usual suspects are here. Coming in number 5, Island of Wok Wok, down 1330 to 9079. Coming in number 4, City Brass from Arabian Nights, down 1407 to 8146. Number 3, it's back. It wasn't here last week, but the Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale, down $22.42 to $1,273.58. Number 2, Gauntlet of Might from Unlimited, down $29.10 to $196.35. Now, this card's been on a weird roller coaster. It was up around $200. It got a little past $200, dipped all the way down close to $100, then it started to go back up again. I think $200 is about the normal price range for this card. If you can find these for $200, it's probably a decent deal. Coming in at number 1, Jazam Jin, down $47.89 to $467.46. Speaking of cards that kind of hang around a price point, this is a $500 card, but it does kind of sway back and forth around that price point. Alright, let's look at the cards that gained value this week. Coming in at number 5 is the Abyss, up $804 to $271.24. This is one of my favorite cards to play with back in the day, and it is pretty decent in some builds in 93-94 format, so it's definitely one to watch over time. I do think long-term, if you're looking at the price point of around $250, $275 for this card, I think that's actually low. I think this card has potential to go up over the period of the next year or so. Coming in number 4, Mishra's Factory, up $10.40 to $109.99. Now, of course, this is the winter variant from Antiquities. It's one of the harder to find, more sought-after variants of this card. Number 3 is Force Field, the unlimited version, up $10.70 to $178.23. Another card that's kind of been going back and forth recently. Number 2, Chains of Mephistopheles, up $13.12 to $386.86. And coming in at number 1 is Bayou from Unlimited, up $18.55 this week to $250. So having said that, those are the cards for this week, and I'll kind of keep an eye on how things go this weekend. Of course, we have a lot of limited Grand Prix going on this weekend, so those, I don't know, some folks like to watch them, some aren't as interested in those as constructed, but I like to watch them, so I'll probably watch a few rounds of those this weekend. And early next week, I will come back and probably do a special edition of the Market Watch where we check in yet again with Standard and kind of see how things are going as we approach the Pro Tour. Next weekend is going to be the Pro Tour, so there's going to be a lot of changes in the market, especially in the world of Standard, so tune in to see what's going on over the course of the next week there. We'll also have a lot of box openings and stuff like that going on in the channel. I got some Amonkhet booster boxes to open. So a lot happening. Until next time, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.